call the board meeting to order, 6:30. All board members are present with the exception of Michelle Lewis, who is excused this evening. First up is the review and approval of May 28th public meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the May 28th public meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Myself included. The date and location of the next meeting will be June 25th, 2024 at Canterbury Elementary School.
Just a reminder on that, I will not be there that evening. I have one agenda item for that night, so I don't know or consider. Do we still have a meeting that evening? Or?
So, what's the meeting here?
This is the administrative report.
So I assume that Joe and Michelle are going to review rules of the agenda and decide whether we have it. I mean, typically for
Wednesday. Okay.
well, I mean, what we recommended we just not have it.
You have a business administrator report on the agenda. I don't anticipate us having anything coming out of the SAU office. It's going to be action on that, right?
Maybe that'd be a good night for us to pour over the grading stuff.
That's all.
We'll leave it on there and you guys can have this plan. That's what we do.
All right, the next thing on the agenda is a student club presentation.
Hi there, thank you everybody. I'm here to introduce our fifth graders and our fifth grade teacher. So that's Mrs. Baldy over by Randy.
Yeah.
And she has brought several of her fifth grade students. So we have Liam, do you want to just give them a wave? And Connor. We have Jackson, Amelia, and we have Angus. And they are all here tonight to share about their trip to Camp Cody, which was part of the Nature's Classroom program that they took part in April with the BMS students from fifth grade as well. So they put together a slideshow and they're going to share that with you tonight. So Angus, you can take it away.
You can always do it from here.
Fifth grade's trip to Camp Cody. Angus's trip. I was an overnight student. My field group was led by a counselor named Jinx. In our field group, we made fire and shelter. For activities, I did building a civilization and raising neighbors. The nights in the cabin were very, very long, and people would not go to sleep. My favorite part was when Jackson, Max, and Elijah and I played cards on the second morning we were there. Katie's trip. She was a day student and went for most of the time. She liked the food in the classes. She took nature art and dissection. In nature art, she used a stream and an acorn cap to make a river ride. In dissection, she cut open an unidentified object and found twins. She was in the Keys group with Connor, Maddie, and Liam. The rest were Belmont kids. and she made a new friend, Caleb, from Belmont. About the pictures, image 1, her counselor and her. Image 2, she was playing, I think, volleyball with some Belmont boys. Aurora's trip. During my Camp Cody trip, during her Camp Cody trip, she learned a lot. For example, she learned that she loved journaling. Journaling is when you go outside and draw your surroundings or what you're feeling. She also found that the food there was fantastic. Her favorite meal was cheeseburgers, tater tots, and watermelon. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Connor's trip. I was an overnight student in nature's classroom. Keeps was my counselor, and my first class was to build a civilization. I built a civilization, progressing through the time periods, and then destroyed it. My second class was wood carving. I carved some wood into a bat with jigs, using a wood knife and anti-poke gloves. The cabin I stayed in was Eagle South. I loved the all-day hike. Penelope's awesome trip to Camp Cody. She was an overnight trip. Her overnight trip was awesome. She was an overnight student, which helped her meet some new friends from Belmont. She learned so many survival skills. She learned how to build a shelter using a Y-shaped tree and some sticks from the woods. She also learned how to use a flint rod and a light cotton ball on fire. During her free time, she mostly did Gaga ball. She liked the middle school Gaga rules more than the Canterbury rules. And some of her favorite things to do were playing the game Camouflage, meeting some of the BMS kids, and even though she disliked all the food, she still liked being at the meals. Some of the students she remembered from BMS are Andrew, Dominic, Chloe, Colton, Sarah, Alyssa, Schleb, Stevie, and Violet. Finally, her instructor's name was Jinx.
Amelia's Camp Cody experience. For me, Camp Cody was an awesome experience I will never forget. The food was amazing, my instructor Schlab was really fun, and I made so many memories with my old friends from CDS, as well as some new friends from Belmont. The two activities that I did on Wednesday were Endangered Egg Babies and Canoe Odyssey. In Endangered Egg Babies, we each had our own egg, and we put them through a series of challenges that endangered animals go through. In Canoe Odyssey, we used wood and rope to make a catamaran connecting two canoes. Then we canoed onto Lake Ossipee and sang songs. My favorite part of Camp Cody was Thursday Night Live. Each field group made a short skit and performed it for everyone, for the rest of us. All of them were absolutely hilarious. Another fun part of Camp Cody was choir sing. Every night, everyone at Camp Cody would go into the rec hall and sing songs. At the end, we would all sing the same song with hand motion. Withdrawal by Tom Petty. Some of the other things I remember some of the other songs were Riptide, Wagon Wheel, and Love Story. We all missed Miss Bobby and wish she would have come, but it's still the most amazing 3 days of my life.
Hazel's trip to Camp Cody. When she was at Camp Cody, she was a night student. Her Camp Cody instructor was named Dabs, but she called him Dabs Master. She thinks the food there was awesome. Also, it was so much fun with different activities for her.
Jackson's trip. My Camp Cody experience was amazing. I was an overnight student. The activities I got to do were build a civilization and wood carving. My counselor's name was Dad. My favorite game was Camouflage. My favorite part of the trip was when my friends and I played Coggleball and learned to jack movements. Elijah's Camp Cody trip. Elijah was an overnight student at Camp Cody. It was so much fun. He played a lot of games like Camouflage and Drill Assassin. The classes that he did were Dissecting a Shark and Nature Art. His instructor's name was Kat. The reason it was fun was because I was away from all of my, because he was away from all of his electronics for 4 days. He thinks going on this trip was a good experience. He has a feeling you will like it too and make new friends. Anna's trip to Camp Cody. Anna had a lot of fun at Camp Cody. She was a day student. When she was there, she got to build a boat and see how it would do in the street. Then she made it, nature art. Evan and Anna had a lot of fun with their art piece. Anna hopes she can go again, but this time with the response.
Max's trip. Max said Camp Cody was tired and I was very tired every day, but Tuesday. Camp Cody was extremely fun and cool. My favorite part of Camp Cody was when I went canoeing on Lake Austin. On Wednesday, I did 2 fun activities, Geodome and Canoe Odyssey. Thursday was easily my favorite of the days that I was there. On Thursday, we went on the all-day hike to Jackman's Ridge. The food was awesome. The first meal was cheeseburgers, my favorite. The cabins were terrible though. Some people would not stop talking when I was trying to sleep. I got to do wilderness survival shelter. My shelter was a wooden structure up against the tree with leaves and pine branches on top. By Friday, I needed sleep because I got barely anything up before. Hayden said, I had a lot of fun at Camp Cody. I made a couple of new friends and I spent a lot of time with my classmates. I stayed overnight for my trip at Camp Cody, so I got to eat dinner and then I did quiet sing in the rec hall. Then after that, I hung out in the cabins before bed. My first class was nature art. Anna and I had a lot of fun painting our designs. My second class was Reagan River. Angus and I were in that group together.
Maddie's trip. Maddie said, Camp Cody was so much fun. I was in Keith's group with Liam and Katie and Connor. The rest were Belmont kids. We went on the all-day hike and that had an overlook of Lake Ossipee. Amelia and I took care of these egg babies, and we had to go through different scenarios that might kill the babies. It was kind of sad to experience. I love Magic Rock and awesome views of the sunset. And Liam's trip to Camp Cody. My Camp Cody trip, although I miss Miss Baldy, I was able to see and experience a lot of stuff I never have before. I was also able to attend the science fair, which I have a picture of in the right corner. I attended Thursday Night Live. I was also able to attend Quiet Sing every night. Reagan's trip to Camp Cody. Reagan said, my day trips at Camp Cody included playing Bulldozer, which was an egg game. I also learned how to build a shelter in the woods. My team made a boat and we launched it in a stream to see how fast it would go. Camp Cody was great and it was all about nature.
So that was the end of our presentation.
Are there any questions? Mrs. Grumman?
How do you build a civilization?
I can
What's
answer
that thing?
that one.
What's that activity? What do you do?
So what we do is we go down to the beach, well, one of the beaches, and so we start out with a bunch of space, and we get a bunch of sticks and pine needles and stuff, and we make mud and stuff to make walls, and we use rocks as buildings first. We as in me, Connor Jackson, so we got a different time period every, 15 minutes, and then we have to make spaces for more people to live, and yeah. Even though we had to end at like 45 minutes for robots to go over here and clean everything up. Yep.
Cool.
Anyone else?
Are there some recipes you would like to share? Because it sounds like the food was very good.
To some people. To some people. To some people. I also don't think they do that right.
Darn
They
it.
didn't give her recipes, they just gave out food.
That is true.
How long were you there for?
3 days, about 3.5 days. 3.5 days.
Yeah.
3.5 days.
And the
Very
day
nice.
students went
2
from
days.
breakfast through,
Dinner.
they came with us on Tuesday, and on Wednesday they came from breakfast to dinner.
That was the last day. So
Yeah, it was.
yeah.
No, they didn't.
Oh.
So it's
Well, they stayed from breakfast until dinner, and they got on a bus, left, and then they came back from breakfast to dinner and then left again. To anyone else?
Did you get to sign up ahead of time for things that were interesting to you, or how did you end up in the groups?
Yeah, so, with that, so they gave us a sheet and we signed up for 2 classes. We got to decide which classes we went to. Yeah, if they weren't already taken. And first, there were like, I think it was 25 different classes, like a lot of different classes. Yeah, counting those. And they were very interesting, very fun.
We also had to sign up for shower days beforehand.
Yeah, and things like that.
Yeah.
It was stuff like that we needed to sign up for.
Do you have
Any
any
other questions?
recommendations for how to get better sleep?
Well, try to convince the people in your cabin to not talk late.
The teachers definitely needed to be more strict with the cabin. Chaperones needed to be more strict with mine are like, if you talk one more time, you're getting sent down to the other.
That was not ours.
Literally, and then before the lights went out, everybody's like, good night, and as soon as the lights went off, it was satisfying. Everybody had their mouths quiet.
Yeah, that was like the 3rd night for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely think the chaperones and counselors should have been a lot more, you guys need to go to bed?
I will take note of
I
that.
feel like, yeah, they should have definitely done a lot more like that.
yeah, but it was still good.
So the threat.
Yeah. Also, I would say, it might have been easier if we had warm shower water to get everyone to sleep.
Yes, my cabin was hogging it.
Everyone was wide awake, and the cabins, they were separated into bunk rooms. So like, the girls were in Sycamore cabin. So Sycamore South and Sycamore North. They even admitted they used up in their showers. They had 2 showers and we had 2 showers. They used up all the hot water. So then a lot of kids in our cabin had to take freezing cold showers. So they were all wide awake and couldn't go to sleep.
Yeah, that happened in our cabin too. Eagle South did it too.
No.
Yeah.
One each shower? I was the first part to shower.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Is this a trip that you would want to take again?
Yes.
Did anybody miss their parents?
I didn't miss my parents because my mom was there.
Parents did. I miss them.
That is
either.
true.
I didn't miss it.
Any more questions?
I didn't miss it.
Going once, going twice.
Sold.
Sold.
I think we're supposed to leave.
All right, next up is broader communication. Anyone in the public would like to comment, please state your name, spell your last name, and state the town that you're from. Okay, seeing no public comment, we're moving on to new business, starting with board member report.
House. Yeah, I don't think we should do something, but I can't remember what it was.
Great. Next up is the athletics report. We had a packet.
Packet with all sorts of information. Yeah, so it was another successful year. Obviously, we were still waiting to find the results for baseball, who had a heck of a year, but came up short in the championship game. But that was kind of interesting still being going this late into the season, but it was a lot of fun for those kids to experience a stadium like that, much like the hockey team was able to when they played at the SNHU Arena. One of the new numbers in the report that I did was to try to get an idea of how many kids in our school participate, and I was actually surprised to find that 49% of our kids participate in at least one sport. So that was kind of a nice number to see. And I know the other one was 14% of our kids participate in 3 different seasons. So I just tried to pull some of that type of information because it's nice to see and track. But most of the numbers this year were trending back in the right direction, which was good to see, which means participation numbers are heading back in a good direction. Other than that, I don't have a ton.
I make a request for future years.
Yeah.
Like you said, the participation numbers were up. I kind of saw that. I think you made a comment about them being up, but I was like kind of curious. So I went to last year's report. But if we could get some type of like a 3-year comparison or 5-year, that might be nice too, just to save a little bit of time.
Yeah, just throw in the table and it can just basically slide over every year.
Yeah.
The new numbers. Yeah. I can do that. And, oh, sorry. And I was gonna say, it's nice to see that like the splits between male and female are pretty even across the board at both EMS and BHS. Sorry, go ahead.
So tonight I attended an incoming freshman night, and Mr. Finch had mentioned that you're always looking for like new sports and things to try here. And you talked about how if incoming freshmen are interested in something, that there's a process. So what constitutes a sport at the high school?
As far as for me, it's most things that are sanctioned under the NHIA is what usually falls under sports and stuff like that, whereas robotics and other programs fall under the club activity side of things.
So would pickleball be a sport?
It is definitely growing rapidly fast, but from my knowledge, there hasn't been any talk at the state level about something like that being added, but I think that as far as a club and activity to get people started, I think it would be a great addition, because I know all ages are loving the sport of pickleball. And I know that Miss Bates, just before she left that final year, she started doing pickleball in PE class and stuff. So.
And he gave it a shout out.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
So, so you mentioned the 5th and 6th basketball programs, the town's park and rec as a possibility or something to think about. I guess my question is, I just want to make sure I'm clear, that doesn't positively impact the gym space that you have, though, correct? Because I assume Parks and Rec would be trying to utilize the same space.
Yeah, I don't know if there are more spaces or what could be used, so it could, you're right, it could be a moot point in terms of the gym space, but it's just been really hard to try to get 8 different programs, gym time, and that one space, because the high school gets used up by the 4 teams that are there, so that's not really an option. And I know I had mentioned it to Ben about potentially using the elementary school, but I know they have some programs in-house as well, so.
I have a question. Have you talked to the town or even to Danielle who runs Park and Recs about this? Have they said anything?
I haven't in the last little while, but I could definitely reach out to her about.
I know she's pretty busy. I remember last year I said something because you said something last year.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, he's never talked to me. So I didn't know if you finally talked to the town and talked.
Yeah, I mean, I had been back and forth.
There hasn't been any communication.
Yeah, I haven't this year. I haven't spoken with her about it. But again, because I guess that probably should go down that path before making any decisions at
Yeah.
this point. And I'm not necessarily saying that, we definitely do that, I just wanted to make note that, it's, gym space is definitely something a lot of people struggle with, but it's just been really hard at the middle school level to put all those teams.
I will say, as a Canterbury rec member, we don't do basketball. We rely on the school for that.
Just out of curiosity, and you two kind of led into the question. When I'm looking at the middle school, and I'm only asking this question for purposes of conversation. In the middle school, the 17 different athletic teams. In the high school, I think there's 27. We're all competing, in many times, for the same space. Are we trying to run too many?
I don't think so, but it would make me, I would say at the basketball one, possibly too many, just because we have 2 5-6 teams, 2 boys and girls,
Right.
and then we have 2 7th and 8th grade teams, boys and girls. The hard part has always been is, we never really want to cut kids if they don't have another opportunity elsewhere, which is kind of the reason that we've always tried to run as many teams as we can, because it's not like other towns where if they cut the kids in school, they have the rec as another opportunity for them to go participate in. And I think that's why we've held on to more teams.
Do we utilize the Canterbury Elementary School gym for 5, 6, 7, 8 ever? Seems like that's another gym space that, I know it's not always ideal if you're a Belmont parent, but we make the Canterbury kids drive to
Right.
Belmont, so on the flip side, if that space is available.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bringing it up with Aaron and see if they have stuff in here after school during the winter. I'm not sure what they use their gym space for, but.
It seems like it could open up a little bit more money.
I know other towns, rec centers actually have their own gym. We don't have one in Belmont, so
Yeah.
that's why I was kind of confused. That's why I was confused by this. It's like, where are they gonna go?
They would
They're just gonna ask for a middle school gym space, so we're not
Yeah.
really solving
Has there ever been discussion at the town level about trying to do something?
They don't say.
Fair.
Any questions?
I have one more question. I'm afraid to ask if I'm gonna ask it anyway. What's the budget show for the athletic trainer? We had an athletic trainer for most of this year.
Yeah, for games.
Are they coming back next year?
To be determined. That particular trainer is to be, yeah.
Position.
Yes, that's the plan as of now. And I know that we have the $30,000, I believe is what the budget is in, but that would be for more than just games. That's for practices, that's for basically full time.
I believe it's 20. Budget is 20, double the amount.
I can double check.
But yes, I know they're hard to come by because I just actually was talking with Mass School Athletic Director, and they had a full-time position that went unfilled all year long for them. So they're definitely tough to come by. So that's why when you get one.
I just have one other question too. So the fields are starting to get overrun by weeds. Is that both sets of athletic fields?
Yeah,
or
I would say
particular-
kind of all but ones. I noticed it a lot on one end of the soccer field. I noticed a lot in the baseball outfield. And Brian definitely has some as well. It's just something, again, I know that it doesn't get fixed overnight, but just keeping an eye on it before it gets to the point that there's not much grass left.
The awards at the end of the year, I think you're gonna stick with that plan?
Yeah, it seems to have gotten pretty good feedback from people. Again, try to give teams the opportunity to close out their end of the year ceremonies of the team, and if some of the coaches want to give out their awards during that time, we allow them. And then if some of the coaches who have really, really small teams like to try to do it in front of everyone as we recap all the season. So, yeah, it's gone over pretty good.
All right, we're going to move on to the special education report and school council report. Go in here.
Hello guys, there's a lot of paper here, as you're aware. So I will just share some highlights with you and then I'll open it up for questions. If you look at page 3, some of our trends and projections, the number of students identified with other health impairments and multiple disabilities and emotional disturbances has decreased. The students identified with developmental delays and hearing impairments have increased. We've had a significant number of openings with our one-to-one assistants and turnover to other school districts, going there for more pay. So there's I feel like a lot of bouncing around with some of our behavioral support based on hourly pay, yes.
Other than money, is there any reason you see that turnover and bouncing?
I think it really comes down to what other districts are offering. It's the pay increase, and some districts offer 100% of the benefits paid for a family plan, which is significant when you're with the cost of living right now with the increase at the grocery store and gas stations. So people are really going to where the money is. I think over even some place that they really love to work.
Yeah.
So I really do believe it comes down to the money. And it's hard because we do invest a lot of time in our staff and train them, and we train them, we get them the certifications, and then they're moving on. So it's difficult. So, but I believe that's probably the biggest reason.
Would it be beneficial to at least start the conversation about getting some of these people on the same type of track? Not just hourly, but contractually, like the negotiated agreements with the teachers. Would you see that to be a benefit? I know there would be an additional cost to the district, but
I don't necessarily think that we need to do that. What I do believe that we need to do is start looking at increasing the rate of pay, and that's something that Michael and I have spoken about eventually in this next budget cycle. So to be competitive with other districts.
What are you paying for insurance, healthcare?
Pay 90% of the single plan and included 80% of the 2-person and family, which was competitive at the time we were looking at it. So I'd have to go back and see now what other districts are offering.
Yeah, I'd be curious what we're looking at in comparison. I could see the medical being a big piece of it as well.
I have reached out to other special ed directors in the Lakes region just to start getting that information.
do they participate in, does those types of positions participate in New Hampshire retirement?
They do if they're 7 hours or more. So I'd say that probably that's our biggest hurdle. We still see a need of increased academic remediation and counseling support for the kids throughout the district, but we have seen a decrease in our homeless and our court-involved student populations, which I feel is pretty significant.
With the increase in the delayed developmental, do you think that that is due to COVID or Are we still seeing the downstream impacts of that?
I believe that the remediation, for the academic remediation, are still a residual from COVID for our kids in the middle school and 9th and 10th graders. But I do believe K through 3 that we're making some incredible ground. And if we look at our kids that are identified, those populations are pretty low. So I think that's from the programming that's been implemented, you know, that Mr. Hill and Aaron Chubb have both done. So I think that's helped. Do you have any other questions for me?
You're looking at the master calendars for the three, basically 3 different buildings. Is there some way that we could get some type of follow-up midway through the year, possibly end of the year, to say, yes, we hit these 35 things, we didn't have time, effort, or time, or monies, or whatever, we missed these 5, or whatever it is, because it's a colossal amount of information that you're saying is going to happen.
Yeah, so this is the first year that all these reports have been the same. The high school did their report the same way as the middle school, Canterbury, and Belmont Elementary School. But yeah, we could probably put something together to quantify what they've done.
Yeah. Yeah. What was accomplished and what wasn't? I mean, because I'm looking at this list and I'm going, that's a lot to cover.
Yeah, and pretty much everything that's on this calendar is that they've completed this year. But to put some anecdotal information on here and to quantify, I think probably would be helpful. So we can incorporate that in going into next school year. And this is the first year that we have a social worker report in here as well.
I did see in the social worker's report that on her wish list, there would be another one of another social worker in the
Yes.
district. Is it typical in other schools about our size to have more than one social worker on staff? Or?
I think part of it is she picked up a little more responsibility with counseling some of our students because we didn't have an in-house school psych this year because we had a contract for that. And that contracted provider, unfortunately, was, there's a lot of testing going on. So she picked up a little more responsibility to help out the team on that. So we looked at kind of how we're going to redirect her position next year to take some of that counseling load away. So I think that will be helpful. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you. Next up is the business administrator report update. Sorry, go right over the findings from Randy.
Yes. All right. So last time we talked, which was like 2 months ago, I was getting ready to meet with the Director of Communications from Oyster River. And it was a fantastic meeting and we totally nerded out. So she gave me a lot of really good information. The benefits of having a communication person, I feel like I don't need to repeat it, but I'm just gonna give you some examples of what she sent me. So the first thing she sent, and I'm happy to forward this on to anyone that wants to see it, is best practices that she wrote for the entire district. So this includes how teachers should communicate with students, how they should communicate with parents, administrators, all positions. It even goes as far to do recommended fonts, colors you should use and not use. She goes into what's easy on the eyes, etc. It's when to communicate, when not to communicate, when is over communicating, when is it not. She then went ahead and when she got there, she started thinking about every possible scenario you could potentially run into, and she just started cranking out templates. So whenever they have an issue come up, there is a 99% chance that she's already got the communication ready. She just plops it in and gets going. So she was extremely proactive with all of this. One of the things that she cited to me was that she was originally hired as a specialist, but that they very quickly bumped her up to an administrative peer. And one of the great benefits of that was they unfortunately had an emergency incident in Oyster River. And while the administrators were focused on handling that, she was able to handle all the communications at ease. She was getting the same information they were getting. They didn't have to worry about any of that. They weren't getting hit by parents being called, all these emails and questions. Like, she was on it and on top of it, which was great. She also talked to me about the National School of Public Relations, National School Public Relations Association. So there's a few schools in New Hampshire that have specific communication people. Most of them are members of this. It's like $100 a year, but they will go through and they have educational opportunities, training, continuing ed, templates, guidance, etc. for school communication professionals. So that was kind of an interesting one. But yeah, we had a great conversation. She was telling me that, she had completely redone their website. She's completely revamped her communications. She's constantly seeking feedback from people, trying to find ways to make it better. It was a very enjoyable conversation. She did attempt to send me all of her templates, but they use SharePoint. So when I clicked on them, it was like access denied. But I was like, she was like, yeah, I'll send them to you. You guys can use them. I was like, yes, please. So there was that. But yeah, it was a great conversation. I do think that we would benefit from a district-wide communications person. I know I've said it before. I'm happy to kind of send this out to you guys if you want to take a look at it, just to see the information she had. She said, feel free to copy whatever you want. Give credit where credit's due.
How long has she been with that district?
I think a couple of years, maybe. So they were very fortunate to have a community member that worked in public relations. And the superintendent had a communications committee that started this, and I believe it was as they were getting ready to build their middle school. And so as the communications committee went through, they identified everything you would need to do for communications. And that community member spearheaded the entire thing, but was also able to help them out in creating this position. She sent me the original job description she has. She's very helpful, happy to discuss anything. But really, it was a delightful conversation.
So one question I have, and I'll pose it to you because you're the one that's brought this up. But so Oyster River is a bigger school district than Shaker. That's my impression.
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough? And I think we'd all agree that communication could be improved. I think we're all in agreement there. But is there enough in our school district to justify this position? Just one
Based
person.
on recent events and conversations we've been having for the past year, I think there is. Having someone that can craft messaging that's consumable to multiple people, that's committed to sending it out. If you have one person that's coordinating it all, like you're looking at how to best maximize effectiveness where it's going in. You're not getting hit with the same information every single day. I do think it's beneficial. I think all schools should have it.
I have a question. How much does it cost?
I told you I didn't ask her how much she got paid. I could probably look it up.
I mean, it comes down to money.
It always
You keep
does.
adding positions. It's getting out of control. Budget's getting bigger and bigger every year. It's just nuts.
I will
Unless you
say
want to
this.
cut some things and then you can add it.
I will say this. I understand that there's always going to be budget issues. But I think that at least maybe, and I'm not signing anyone up, but if anyone did want to volunteer to join this National School Public Relations Association and at least go through some of the trainings and bring back info and spread it out. I don't know who does the bulk of the communications now, but it could also be like a concerted effort of getting administrators together in the summertime, which I'm sure they don't want to do, but saying how are we communicating, how can we be consistent have the week effective. So there's probably things that we can do, but those things are gonna take time, they're gonna take resources away from people. It's where we want to focus our attention.
I just don't want someone coming in for a position for $62,000 and all they do is communicate.
I hear
I
you.
don't, we can't, our community can't support that. But, $100 to, I don't know. Kim does most of the Facebook stuff, doesn't she, Michael?
Oh,
Yeah. So you want to
Well, I think this is
spend
legitimate than
$100 and send her to
Facebook.
that and do that?
If she was interested
If
in
she was
it.
willing to do it.
Yeah.
what's the name of the organization?
It's the National School Public Relations Association.
Do you know if in addition to communications, are there any other responsibilities that she has? Like, does she do grant writing or does she do something that?
I did not ask her that. We did talk, she said that, she worked on the overhauling of the website, she was key in that. So really just like kind of bigger focus. She talked a lot about, this was 2 months ago. There's something with busing. Like they were starting to do something different with their busing and she was getting involved in that. So yeah, as the district makes shifts in direction, she's getting brought in to help them figure out how to best communicate it. And there's multiple communities within the Oyster River School District. So that's another issue too, is you're communicating out different ways.
I think I would be interested in seeing like the job description, just because there are things, for example, coordinating events in the district, right? Like, I'm assuming Michael, somebody must be making sure that, for example, the high school open house isn't the same day as the Hewitt Center open house. And you have parents having to pick between the two. Like, it'd be nice to have somebody that could help oversee district-wide events as well. And maybe that's something that, if the board thought this was important, we could find things that this person should be doing as well as just sending emails out. That would be an example of one thing that this person might be good at that.
Absolutely.
If it stays strictly communication, what are the logistics? I guess I have a question here. What are the logistics for sharing someone between 2, possibly 3 districts?
If they have maximum efficiency like this lady did.
Well, because it's in a lot of this stuff, it's the same work. It's just the numbers, the numbers behind it.
It's the grant and the top option.
Yeah.
Beth, I'll send you guys all the information.
Thank you.
So just one quick question. Other than just presenting this, what would be the next steps?
Well, so I'll send it to everyone and you guys can take a look at it. I think we have this like every other month on here and we can discuss it again. Happy to discuss it earlier.
But specific to this position, for example, if you think there's value in it, then come budget time, you should present that. Now, it might be 6 against and 1 in favor, or you could swear everybody, but I think that's something I think is important. It's worth having a discussion from a budget perspective. And then if we disagree with them, we disagree, or maybe we say, let's wait a year, who knows what. But if you're gonna do all that work and you feel strongly about it, I would say bring it forward and we should talk about it from a financial perspective.
Like do a big PowerPoint. Make a slide just for Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on that? Now moving on to the business administrator report and update.
So I have an update on the projected unexpended funds out of the current year budget. It's going to be somewhere around $660,000. That's not translated to a fund balance because you can't overspend your budget, and there will also be excess revenues. But as of now, 660 is what it appears is going to be underspent. Again, the majority of that is salary and benefits.
Is that before or after the stuff that we voted to move to trusts?
So that comes out of fund balance.
Okay.
So that has, it all becomes part of the formula.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be part of the additional excess revenues plus our beginning fund balance. So I'm just talking expenditure
Okay,
side.
gotcha.
But if you wanted to take that out, then obviously drop that. We do have excess revenues that we'll also take into that. We got some excess revenues for Medicaid reimbursement and some interest earnings, so. But that is the update on the end of year projection.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, the approval of the treasurer, deputy treasurer, and school board secretary.
Recommendation is in the packet.
Motion to appoint Courtney Roberts, treasurer, Kimberly Haley, assistant treasurer, Greta Olson-Wilder, board secretary.
Again,
Is the increase that's specified budgeted 23-24?
yeah, that was the percent increase for the non-affiliated.
So that was already discussed. Yeah, that was the question.
But if anyone does know someone looking for a board clerk, we still need to hire that position. Or actually, you need to appoint it.
Any further discussion? And motion, and who's in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
Just Jack.
Just Jeff. Moving on to the award of the high school roof bid. Information in there.
Motion to award the BHS Roof Bid to Lance and Company and reserve $2,850 variance for the 2023-2024 budget.
So I have an update on that. I looked at the wrong CIP. The CIP was actually 40,000 that was in there. So we are 26,000.
Motion withdrawn.
And so we discussed this at the Buildings and Grounds meeting just prior to this meeting. And I think the consensus was
We're gonna need
26,850.
from unexpended funds at the end of the year to cover the roof. Because what we had budgeted was not enough, unfortunately.
just to be clear, the 66,000 or whatever, yeah, the amount in the CIP was 64. It's just that we budgeted.
No, we budgeted 40 for the
Correct.
roof.
Well, we budgeted less than what we had anticipated in the CIP. Right? Not phrasing it right, but we did know the cost was going to be around what it was.
So when the Buildings and Grounds Committee was revisiting the CIPs, they did come back and say, oh, Leah's going to be 60,000. That was in the middle of all the budget development. So what we used to develop the budget was an old CIP number, which was 40,000. And then in January, after the budget had already been developed, was when they said, no, 60,000 should be the real number, but that never went back into the budget. So 40,000 is what's in the budget to address the roof over the academic wing of the high school. The bid, and only one bidder came in at 66,850.
You mean the office roof area?
The office areas.
Right. Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and I
Exactly.
apologize, I missed the Buildings and Grounds meeting, but, so, when we do the CIP, we budget and put money in the trust. So would we not take this money out of the trust? Because I felt like that was in there.
So no, what we did for the CIP was we had two projects this year. We had $40,000 in for the high school roof, And then we had $60,000 in for the Belmont Middle School fire alarm. The Belmont Middle fire alarm was where we were taking $24,000 out of the expendable trust.
Okay.
So the fire alarm actually came in at $64,000. That was a sole source.
I would just say in general, the CIP might show a dollar amount any given year, right?
Right, totally get that.
Right.
But it's not always going to be all funded through the expendable trust. There's always going to be a budgeted portion of it. The hope is that the budgeted portion isn't the full amount that year, that we would kind of, we piecemeal it, part with the budget, part with the expendable trust. That makes sense.
The trust is the shopping.
What's that?
The trust is the shopping.
Well, it's not so much that
Exactly.
we try to balance between
Right.
using the trust and using the general fund. Use the trust to keep from wild extremes.
That makes sense.
So do we need to, so what's presented to us, do we?
The number needs to be updated.
Right, so we need to amend,
Right, so it needs to be
This first.
$26,850 to reserve from the 23-24 fiscal year towards the roof.
So a motion to award the BHS Roof Bid to the Melanson Company for reserve $26,850. Variance from the 23-24 budget. Further discussion?
One more question. Sorry. That 26, whatever, does that come out of the 660?
Yes.
That you mentioned?
Yes.
So we would be returning, assuming there's nothing else here, 660 minus 20.
Well,
640-ish.
you'll decide later on when you decide what to retain, how much you're going to be returning. But there's a whole formula. I've got to take the current year fund balance, plus all the revenues, minus all the expenditures to come up with a new fund balance, and then you can decide what you're going to retain.
But
But the
main point is
660, yes, we're going to subtract.
from that 660.
Right.
All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Next up is
Chromebooks. So after the last board meeting, we went back, signed the paperwork for the lease. They went to put the order in for Wally Computer for the Chromebooks. And then we received word that the Chromebooks that had been bid on were all discontinued and they could not get them anymore. And that both companies have bid on the same Chromebooks, which neither one could get. So we had to get updated information, and this is the increase. It's an increase to $93,300 for the Chromebooks, and the lease would go to $33,224.13 per year for 3 years.
Question.
Mhm.
I assume that when you get a quote, it's good for 30 days or something.
It is good for 30 days.
Does it not apply when they can't
Correct.
get the equipment?
If they can't get the equipment, they can't hold the price.
So, was there any effort made to look at other machines to stay within what we approved? Or did we
There was
just say,
nothing
what's the new
available
price?
within what we approved. There were some that were available that were a little bit more than what we approved, but they didn't have the RAMs they needed, and they didn't have the processor speed that the tech department said we needed. So these are the ones that fit those requirements.
Are these students or for teachers?
These are for students.
So these vendors that came back with bid,
Mhm.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around that they either could not have or should not have known that these machines were not going to be available.
So apparently this was HP that came back when they placed the order, and HP said we've discontinued, they're not available.
So, I will say, I had the exact same thing happen like a few weeks ago where I put in the bid and it goes through like multiple people to approve it. And the problem is, Dell said, it's available, but we don't have a ton, so keep your bids in quickly. And somebody dragged their feet, to the point that when it finally went through all the hoops, it made it to Dell, and they said, yeah, we don't have any more of them. The next model is such and such. Now, in my case, Connection covered the cost because it wasn't a high number. And they're like a reseller, they're our middleman. But the scenario that you're presenting, I've seen that before. It's frustrating, and I don't know how much of a time lag there was between when we got the quote versus when we had our board meeting, we approved it, and finally went back to the vendor, but. Yeah.
We tried to have it narrow, but, and Connection never even bid this time.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if they knew that those were limited.
What happens with the leases and the Chromebooks? Like so
When they're up?
my son is returning his tomorrow. We do tend to respect tech in our house, but I was thinking about it because there's like nothing wrong with his.
Right.
It's still fast, it still holds a charge, he charges it every couple of days. And what happens to them?
So it depends. Some of them are scheduled their end of life and they're not going to be reissued. Other ones that are good are reissued. And some we use for parts to repair. Others that come in, it may have a broken screen, but we can take the screen off one computer and put it on another if the processor's dead in one. So our IT department tries to reuse what they can. And then we have it for loaners if a student for whatever reason breaks his and it's being fixed and he needs a loaner, you can get a loaner for a few days.
In the grand scheme, the amount of the increase to me isn't a ton. I would like to make sure that our processes are such that we're not causing this to happen more often. Does the board need to approve these quicker? Do we need, should we be waiting until the next board meeting? What if there isn't a second board meeting in June? Those are just things that we should be thinking about so that we don't run into a situation going on.
We tend to ask for the bids back, usually the Thursday before a board meeting. I believe that was the case with these bids as well. So we try to have the bids come in as close to a board meeting as possible so that we can award the bid and not have that lag time.
And I did reach out the day after the board meeting to the finance company so they could get the paperwork done.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
I make a motion to amend the bid awarded to Walling Computer Association on May 28, 2024 to $93,300, and further to amend the award of financing the First American $33,224.13 per year for 3 years.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to superintendent update.
Things are bustling right now in the schools and in the district. We are closing out the school year. That comes with a lot of during the school day events at all of the schools, as well as the evening events at the schools. We had a wonderful senior graduation this past Friday. Went really well. Tomorrow night is our 5th grade promotion at CES. Friday night is our 4th grade promotion at BES, and next Monday is our 8th grade promotion at BMS. So things are really bustling, and our last school day is next Tuesday, and that's an early release day. I also want to let the board know that we recently conducted off-site evacuation drills in all 4 of our schools. They went really well. I was present for all 4 schools, and things went well. We learned a few things along the way, but the staff and the students did a wonderful job during that process. And I also want to say thank you to First Student. They provided the buses for us on that day at no cost to us. So just that's busy right now, but really great events that are going on in the school.
Question. High school graduation. So we moved to the high school, which I think is great. If it were to rain every year, we always had it inside, would you still rather have it at the high school than where we had it previously?
You're asking my personal opinion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say we should have it at the high school because we are the ones that can set the calendar for that. I'm not sure other venues other than Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion.
I knew that was the issue with Bank of New Hampshire is the date change.
Yeah, and well, the reason why we brought it to the high school is because we could never confirm a date early enough for families to have their families fly in and so forth. Not to mention the date seemed to always fall on Father's Day. But also, more importantly, sometimes those graduation dates work beyond the time that seniors actually were ready to graduate. So seniors had to wait in order to go through the ceremony. So we can actually control the entire event, which is very helpful.
Because ideally it's outside, but it feels like it rains all the time, so, or it's very cloudy to the point you think it's going to rain. So it's almost like, it feels like a given that we actually have to plan on being inside, basically. And so if we were to keep it inside, 80% of the time, are we still happy with that decision? And you are?
I am. I find it's a little bit more personal when we have it at the school. And, we, unfortunately, the past 2 years, we've had to be inside, but even inside, we're able to accommodate everyone's guests. I mean, this was a small class with 66 seniors. We didn't turn anyone away coming in, and everyone was comfortable. So, again, my personal opinion is I like having a ceremony at our school.
It's free at our school, right?
Yeah, there's no cost to it. I should say, there's no cost.
Venue cost.
Venue cost.
Do we live stream that when it's inside?
No, we did not. We have when we felt that we weren't able to fit everybody, I want to say 3 years ago. 4 years ago. Yeah. So, but we've been able to accommodate everybody. So that's all I have. See?
I know you made, I spaced it, last year, made a question or request if any board members wanted to be at the high school one. I know we both have, going up through the 8th grade, what's the process for being part of the middle school, just contact the school.
As a board member, board members are welcome and would love for you to attend any of those events. For high school graduation seniors, the board chair is always there and shakes hands after the student receives their diploma. So at any point, any of these events, school board members are more than welcome to attend.
Thank you. Next up, we have a strategic direction update. This is listed as an action item and it should be listed as information. Really excited for a second. Sorry.
So I just a request from the board just to see, I would like to have one liaison from the school board that I can work with when I start soliciting potential facilitators. So it would be me and a board member that would actually have these conversations with a potential facilitator in the future. The board did agree to use savings that we already anticipate in the 24-25 budget to help pay for a facilitator. I would just like to get the process going of finding out specifically what a facilitator would be able to offer and be able to nail down the cost, and I'd like to do that with a board member representative.
If no one wants to do it, I'm happy to do it. I know Michelle's not here, I'm not sure if she would want to do it. if any of you want to do it.
It'd be great.
I'll nominate Randy Johnson.
Great. Randy and I will work on that. So the two of us will go bring information to the board as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the volunteer list.
Motion to approve volunteer list with conditions.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, and then on the horizon.
As we discussed at the beginning, not a lot.
Right. Well, I'd like to, at a minimum, the June 25th. I mean, I know Al's done a colossal amount of research into the whole grading thing. I have experience from working at different schools on the grading issue. I've spoken to the DOE that they make no demand as to what grading system that a district has, only that a district has a grading system. And then they go so far, when I was talking to them about competencies, all they would say is that, well, the state of New Hampshire is a competency state, but they won't say that there's a mandate to the districts. I mean, we've seen we've had a student rep bring the student concerns again and again and again. I feel that we've ignored them. We've had parents bring concerns again and again. I feel that we've ignored them. We're a year into this discussion about the 1 through 4 grading, and my personal feeling, being on the policy committee, is what was presented to us. I'm shocked that it took a year to get to that point. The changes that were presented to us. So I feel that the June 25th meeting would be a great opportunity for us to discuss that. Maybe make a decision. Firm decision, because there's a lot of people that say, well, something needs to happen, some change needs to happen. I made a motion last year to revert to a Carnegie system. I didn't get that. I didn't get the support. If someone else wants to make that motion, have at it. But with nothing on the schedule on the 25th, I think it would be completely appropriate for us to duke this out and come to some type of conclusion.
Are you suggesting that we don't have a policy meeting? Just discuss it as a larger board?
Say that again.
Are you suggesting that we don't have the policy meeting on that day and we discuss it as a larger board, or?
Well, I mean, that could be combined. I mean, like I said, you're bringing forth, a lot of information. With as hot potato of a topic that this is, I don't see the effectiveness to have 3 of us crunching that information, presenting it to the board, and then having the board say collectively, yes, I like it, or no, I don't like it. I mean, I almost feel like it should be an entire board conversation.
Okay, so I'm perfectly happy to go ahead and have that discussion kind of bring to the board. As you said, it is a very large amount of research, and ultimately looking at maybe not every SAU in the state, but I've kind of narrowed it down to central and southern New Hampshire, where I'm looking at all of their IKs, how they implement them, whether or not they have a way to equate it to the 1 to 4 scale, or equate the 0 to 100 to the 1 to 4 scale, just how they're doing it, and just kind of writing that down. And I've been, keeping Mark and Michelle sort of apprised of that as the other policy committee members. But I'm perfectly happy to bring that as a board discussion on the 25th.
So do you think that's an important one to have Michael here for? He's not going to be say.
We could consider having it another day that week. Or is it just that one day that you're not? Oh,
Monday through Wednesday.
get the calendars out. Exactly. I was gonna say, let's take a look at Thursday, Friday then.
Next week too.
So,
There's next week too.
The first week of July?
No, there's next meeting next week.
Oh. I can do the 18th.
I'll make anything work.
I concur.
And again, this is to discuss the proposed changes to the policy IK, correct?
So I don't know about if there will be proposed changes at this point, but there is an extensive amount of research that I've done and Mark has done at this point, and just kind of bringing some of the things that we've found to see if, you know, anyone has any opinions on some of those proposals at this point. Because what I'm finding is that it's it's vastly different
It's all over
across
the
the state.
Right.
So without kind of bouncing ideas off of Michael and some of the lovely people, as to what might work. I mean, I don't have a child in middle school. I don't have a child in high school. My kids are elementary level, so my understanding of the grading systems at those levels is definitely not on the same level as some of you guys. And I'd like a little bit more input, I guess, in that.
Are we proposing June 18th as a meeting instead of June 25th, or?
I'll make anything work.
I feel like I can make that work.
Tuesday the 18th.
So we crunch that. Are we meeting here? Are we meeting at the SAU? Here?
I think it would be.
Yeah, it'll be here.
So the information you gather, I assume it will be in a packet that we'll get ahead of time.
Well, I'm gonna do my best there.
Not that we're making any decisions per se, but if you.
And the scope of this is like an expanded policy working session. If I understand this correct.
I think that's,
Potentially, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
So I don't know if all that information you've already shared should go out to
I can
sort of
forward
come
that
from
email.
SAU, or if it
Yeah.
should just come to all of us through you, or.
No, you should send it to Kim so she can put a packet together like we would do for any board meeting.
Right now, I don't know if it's in like packet form, it's just email for information, but I can,
Yeah, a ton of links.
yeah, so I'll have to work on that.
Should see it by 5.
If it's not ready, it's not ready. I'll just talk about that. If it is ready, then sure.
I'm do my very best.
So is this replacing the 25th?
Yes.
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 All set with that. Moving on with the enrollment report.
So you can see as of June 1st, our enrollment is across the district 1,098 students. It's 3 fewer students than the main report.
Do we have preliminary kindergarten numbers for next year yet?
I don't have those this evening.
Well, pre-K on here is.
I do know, just talking with Mr. Bill the other day, that PES is already over 70 students.
All right, next up we have 2 internal policy first readings. Alice, you want any information about that?
That's one, yeah. So this EBCC is actually one that has previously come to the board. Ultimately, essentially what happened was we went to go and update our bombs and other such threat policy as directed by the New Hampshire School Board Association, and it really read like 2 policies that were just stacked right on top of each other. So what I did was I went in and I sort of incorporated additional language to include active shooters, lockdown information, shelter in place, things like that, and just really tried to make it seem like a policy that wasn't 2 separate policies and just sort of married the 2 together. So there are a lot of edits there. Happy to answer any question on this.
Yeah, there's many, but none of them are really significant, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, we've done, but we've seen it twice?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is just information. First read.
First read.
Does anyone have any questions about that? The second policy, JLCF, is the wellness policy. And we were, Jill, you may actually be able to speak a little bit more to some of the edits, honestly.
Well, I wasn't there for that first meeting, so maybe
but there were some edits made as a result of the wellness committee meeting, and those are reflected in policy.
I have a question. So one of the items that was removed was that the district will offer a health and food and nutrition class each semester in the middle school and high school. And it looks like it may have been.
What line are you on?
44.
On page 1.
And then on page 2, it says the elementary and middle schools will have snippets of health benefits and newsletters, and then the high school will develop and maintain healthy lifestyles and resources about each. Was this not being done at the middle school?
So with the wellness policy, we have to do a triennial report. So the policy has to have goals that's set for 3 years, and then the committee has to review whether the goals have been met and update. The triennial report was presented to the board back in February, and we had attained all of the goals. So we had to set new goals. We're not saying that the old ones are going to go away, but these were just new goals that the committee set up to establish. You can't just keep using the same goals over and over. So the middle school was doing the health classes. They were doing some of the snippet of information, but we're just trying to put it in as a goal to meet what USDA requires. If that makes sense.
It does. I don't like that we're putting goals in for a policy. It's good. We know that it's going to change every 3 years.
Yeah.
Can we reference
A
the
goal is there's a big difference between a goal and
a policy?
stated in the
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Bureau of Nutrition, when they did our audit 3 years ago, we didn't have goals in the policy, and we got written up for it, because the goals have to be in the policy.
All right, if it is a requirement that the goals need to be in the policy, I would accept that the goals need to be in the policy.
So all of the wellness policies, when you look around the state, your goals are in them.
That's okay.
Any other discussion around wellness policy?
Debbie, were we able to get those reports put on the website?
The reports for this past year are, and I'm gonna have to double check, because I did talk to Kim about that, and I still have to locate the other ones, they're somewhere on my hard drive.
Thank you.
Next up, we can acknowledge the resignation that was in our packet, and we have some nominations for CES fourth grade teacher, CES school nurse, CES kindergarten teacher, 2 of them, and a special education coordinator.
Multiple motions or one motion?
We will one unless anyone has any questions on the first motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the single resignation and the nomination for fourth grade teacher, nomination for school nurse, nomination for 2 kindergarten teachers, and a nomination for special ed coordinator.
Second.
Discussion?
I did have a question about is the pay just based on experience or?
Yes. We're trying to stay within what we have for a budget, particularly talking about the special education coordinator position.
I was talking about the elementary level teachers.
Those are all based on a collective bargaining agreement, which is based on years of experience and a degree.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to public communication and correspondence. Anything to share? Okay, thank you for attending. We have minutes in non-public. I don't believe anything else in there.
Can
You can approve those in public.
Any motion to approve both minutes from May 28th, 2021?
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Abstained?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Roll call.